Great. Thank you all very much. And so just wanted to talk to you a little bit about a policy that was implemented or went into effect in May of this year. So hopefully you're already familiar with it, but if you're not, we're going to make sure that you are by the end of the session. And I wanted to talk a little bit about why we were doing this. So one of the things that the department showed me when I got here is this list of all of the .ca.gov domain names that existed. And quite frankly, there had just been no rules or regulations around them. So they had been created willy-nilly and left to linger forever. So some of my favorites, worksmart.ca.gov, probably a really good intention, but work smart. Askspecialist.ca.gov. We had both CalMentor and CalMentorPrograms.ca.gov that existed, and probably from our former governor, CaliforniaStrong.ca.gov, right? So nearly 1,000 domain names .ca.gov. Many of them had no contact information. Many were out of date. Many didn't need to exist anymore. So we initiated a project at DevOps and CDT to start meticulously, and it was tedious, and Michael has done a lot of this work, go through and try to identify all of these content owners, decide whether or not those domains need to be kept, and whether or not we should develop the contact owners for them. So if you want to go to the next slide, show you where we ended up at the end of this project. We're not 100% done with it, but we've come a long way. So there were 948 when we started. We deleted 259 of them. It gives you an idea. You can think about how many just were out there. And what I talked about earlier about building trust amongst the users of our state presence on the internet. I mean, if they've gone to some of these 259 sites that were old and out of date, what trust does that build in terms of what they're getting from the state of California? We still are working on these two, and I would make a pitch that Michael has a list. If you want to see it, he'll send it to you. The total number of unclaimed no contact information. These are, we think, websites that are that we still need to find the owners of. We can't decide what to do with them because we need to contact an owner and find out whether or not we can delete it, move it, what can we do with it. We have contact info, but they still haven't gone through the process of claimed, which Michael's going to talk about. And then so right now we have 452 that are good. We have good, solid contact information. We know these entities exist. These websites are legit. We have contact. I mean, one of the things that we need to be able to do is, if there's a problem with your website or we need information from your website because of an emergency, we now have contact information for them. So it's really a critical step. So part of this project was not only doing this, again, a lot of work, but making sure that we didn't get back to this place. So that's where the policy comes into play. So I'm going to have Michael walk through we did the policy and sort of the domain name registration that was created. There's also rules now about what domain names you're allowed to have. Those follow federal standards. And Michael's going to walk through those. And so, the goal is to create a consistent overall, this gets back to what we were talking about, right? Consistent overall look and naming nomenclature for the state of California so that people are assured when they go to websites that they know that they're legit state of California websites. I will say, and I know Michael said this too, if you have an older one that is grandfathered in, I want to make it really clear that we're not forcing anyone to change. If your current domain name doesn't meet these standards, we're not making you change it. But in the future, if there's new ones, they're going to have to go through this process. So, Michael?
Thank you. Oh, and side note about this slide, the 59 here that say unclaimed and with no contact, we have reached out to the departments that those involve. Just we're in touch with them, and hopefully those will be cleared into that bottom category soon. That is our hope and intent. We've made some good progress on that. So they're not just sitting there. We are in progress of that, contacting those departments. And another side note is all the numbers on this slide don't add up exactly to 948. There's that one small subset of groups we are actively engaged with. We have contacts for them, and soon we will disseminate those into one of these other categories. It is an ongoing process. And for as you might know from the policy release in May, the domain name request system, domain name request.cdc.ca.gov, went live in May. Among other features, you can use it to claim ownership of your domains, and that protects your domains from unauthorized changes. So in the past, to make any changes or to specify who the owners of your domain are, you would call our service desk or get in touch with our technicians and tell them on the phone, I am so-and-so, I am the new web administrator or the manager or the new information officer. We need these changes made to our website, and we would do our best to work with you to make that happen. But come the next day, a different person from your department calls us and say, oh, can you make this completely different change or undo all the previous changes? Then it becomes an additional process and very time consuming to clarify who's doing what and what changes should or shouldn't be made. And this system will come a long way in helping prevent any unauthorized changes or even authorized changes where different people have good ideas, but the ideas may not be completely compatible. And we've seen a few cases of that, and this system has already helped in that aspect. We've had a webmaster tell us, please make this change to my domain, a different IP address, and then their manager saw that happening and saw the changes in the system, which I will briefly demonstrate here, and chimed in on that process to make sure the changes were in line with all of their visions and intent. And with the system, you can add and update contacts at any time, and contacts are notified if that contact list changes, and you will receive annual reminders, and it'll be mostly a set of checkboxes to make sure that your contacts are current, your domain's still in use. So real quick, here's a sample of the domain name request system. Three main options when you first visit the site. The one we're talking about here, claim an existing domain, and you type in your email and then send key. That'll send a six-digit numeric key to your email address, which you type in with your email, user key, and you log on. And to skip to what that might look like, once you logged on, and you can look at the domains that are under your purview. When you click that, you'll see a screen similar to this. Go to manage contacts, and you can add contacts or delete them. And each person can serve in multiple, like Eric, for example, he can be administrative contact and technical contact and CIO contact if the same person serves in all of those roles. And real quick on these items here, we could still add a technical contact, add and a CIO contact. And about the CIO or CIO equivalent approval document, that can be as simple as an email or an excerpt of a letter or part of a charter. Any document you want, email being the most common we've been seeing, you can upload that says so-and-so is the CIO or equivalent of your organization, and they are aware of the domain and approves of it. As Linda was saying earlier, the websites are not just a technical item, but a matter of communications and disseminating information. So it makes sense that the chief information officer be at least aware and is okay with what domain is being used. And that document, you just upload it once, and it'll stay on file. And the annual reminders will just remind you to make sure your contact information is current. And that'll help everyone involved, since we've, as Linda said, we've had a long process of finding the right contact and the right owners for each domain, and these contact information changes, especially since over the years there have been partnerships between departments. One department will contract with another to do web work, and then that relationship changes. 5 years down the line, there's a federal audit, and then we're trying to find the owners, and we end up calling the wrong department. And this system and its annual reminder system will help all of us in contacting the right people, especially during an emergency. And the feds don't call us very often, but they do check, and they do call, and they do audit, and they have a requirement that we have the right contacts on file. Let's see, current slide. So yeah, about federal mandate, the feds who ultimately own .gov and everything under it, they have these requirements that we are fulfilling with Data Administrative Manual and the Data Information Management Manual and the Domain Name Request System that we just talked about. So among those items, alignment and consistency with Federal General Services Administration policy, and a process for review, approval, and denial of requests, and a process for removal of non-compliant domains. So if you read the SAM 5195 and the details in 40A, those items are outlined, what the rules are and what the process is. And the next set of requirements that the Feds told us to fulfill, to have a list of domain owners. We were just talking about that. The domain name request system fulfills that. And documentation, who owns what domain, how it got created, and for example, the CIO approval. And routine monitoring of compliance, which is fulfilled mostly by the annual reminder system within the domain name request system. And there's that URL at the bottom again. So some examples of the GSA policy that we are required to mirror. If you look at the federal example, the feds own .gov, that's their root. And they're letting various owners use .gov, and in their case, in their context, California is an owner using the root of .gov. And for California state, the root is ca.gov. And in this context, an owner would be, for example, a department or city or county. And in this is just an example, EDD. And any programs under EDD, such as Access, would be a subdomain from that. So that would be a third level domain. And the domain name request system tracks and records this level of domain, third level. It does not record fourth levels and other programs, sub-programs that you might put under that. And again, the URL or domain name or URL for websites is named after the owner or service provider, not the service recipient. So we've heard also before that certain cities don't want to have to use their city name for a URL, saying we offer services outside of our city. But similarly, the feds will have told us there are states that offer services outside their state, and even to Mexico, and the feds are not going to let any state have Mexico.gov. So we are, in that way, following the nomenclature that the federal GSA has set out for us. And also, the federal government wants to make sure that government sites convey reliability, credibility, and value to the public. And one example of that is the 41 CFR Part 102-173.90, which says, among other things, the logic of the name adds value to the .gov domain. And as Linda mentioned earlier, we've deleted more than 250 derelict domains, the great majority of which had on their sites the latest, greatest information dated 2004. And in the great majority of those cases, when we finally found the owner, they said, oh yeah, we haven't touched that since 2004, and that should probably go away. There are exceptions in other situations, but that was the great majority of these cases. And another example was we received 2 requests, each for 16 plus domains for the same site. They're building a marketing website, and they wanted 16 different URLs pointing to that site. And in their request, they say more requests are coming for the same site. And that was, having 16 different URLs just didn't seem to add value to the .gov domain, and might have confusion in anything. And we understand that non-compliant domains were built before the policy, and some of those, for example, for fire departments, were hard-coded into emergency response systems. So we understand that is not feasible to completely remove some of these existing domains. So they're being grandfathered in, and we understand there's nobody's fault. And there's an example that we've been getting calls about, vision.ca.gov. Anyone been to that site, vision.ca.gov? It goes to Fish and Wildlife. And again, that's nobody's fault. I mean, it made sense for them at the time. And in the old days, in the early 90s, there were just a handful of departments that had domains at all. And it was unclear until 93, 94 if departments were going to have websites at all. And at the time, you know, and that was before policy. So we understand these things happen, and unfortunately, vision going to wildlife doesn't add a whole lot of value. But going forward, new domains must follow the nomenclature, so we can limit that from happening for future cases. And as I know about the nomenclature, we keep talking about the owner being like EDD in the earlier example. That also helps in the many cases where we've been asked, what domains do we own? Can you tell me all our websites? It would be a whole lot easier for everyone if all your websites had the owner, your program.edd.ca.gov, for example, or your program.dwr, or even our department, program.cdt.ca.gov, then there's no question who owns that. And I've also heard the question, do people really care who the owner is? And the answer is yes. I mean, how many people here have called a medical provider or a state entity or a corporation or a store and have been redirected to a different department? Show of hands. No one's ever been redirected? Yeah, we get a lot of nods throughout the room, and that's when it becomes very important to the customer who owns this. And so when they call the governor about a particular ca.gov site and yell at the governor's reps, and then be told, oh, EDD takes care of that, or CalPERS, or then it becomes very important who owns what. And for among the many other reasons, it is important to have that ownership information as part of the URL. And that is also why the feds do it the way they do, and they want us to mirror that. And in addition to the domain name request system, there's a URL up here for the FAQ, which is also linked from the bottom of the domain name request website to help answer any specific scenarios and questions that come in a lot. And we're getting towards the end of the presentation.
I wanted to say, I know that you're probably all sitting here thinking, yeah, that all sounds good, there's a policy, but I know that my comms professional or my deputy director is going to say, but we want whatever, we want, happyrus.ca.gov, because that's the name of our program, and we want the designer URL that people can just go to it. I get it. I'm in comms, I know. There's a reason we established this policy. There's an appeal process. People go through it. Appeals come to me. And guess what? People go over my head, right? So while I've been able to have a lot of good conversations with my colleagues about why we're denying it, for example, cannabis, when they started, they wanted to fit on every domain name that anyone could possibly want about weed.ca.gov and marijuana.ca.gov, blah, blah, blah. And I called them, I said, people can't get those websites without coming to us. We're not going to give somebody else weed.ca.gov, except for maybe the city of weed, but they'd have to be the city of weed.ca.gov, right? So you don't have to get them all. You're going to get one, and it's going to be the Bureau of Cannabis, whatever they are now, right? They changed their name 3 times. But that's all they get. They get the Bureau of Medical Cannabis Regulation. I think they are, EMRC now or something. .ca.gov, and that's it. And that's all they get. And they're fine with it once you explain it. Now, I have had people literally go to the cabinet secretary of the governor to get their website. And you know what? I can't do anything about that. If you're going to go and bother the governor's cabinet secretary, if you so much want your website, fine, But so I'm just saying, I get that you're all saying, no, that's great, but I'm never going to be able to get it through. We have really been able to stop a lot of these designer websites just by explaining it. Guess what? There's a policy now. We have to follow it. Not saying there aren't going to be exceptions, but for the most part, you do have something to back you up, and you have us to back you up, because we're not going to let Eric and myself and Michael, we believe in this. There's a reason we did this. There are 250 plus fewer websites now because we went through this process. So it's important to us, and it means something. And I have said multiple times on when we were developing this and we were doing this, this was the most concrete work I've done in the state of in my job. I've actually made a difference in sort of trimming down and getting our arms around this thing. So anyway, does anyone have any questions? Yeah. So you mean would you be able to contact webinars who's the contact for your department or for other departments?
the web admins for the domain name request system can see all of that information, but not all users who come onto the system can see everyone else's contact information. And that decision was made to protect you from spam, because it's easy to access the system, and yeah, we don't want just anyone in the public to be able to see your specific email address for every domain that you own. But if you need that information, you can definitely get in touch with us. Our admins have access to that information. Yes, for example, here I'm logged in as an admin, and I can go into super user functions and look at all domains and all of their contact information. But again, to protect you from spam, we don't give this to just everybody. It's a very user-friendly system, and it needs to be, well, the non-admin functions need to be accessible by government. Only government entities can get data.gov domains, but when they first come to us, we may not have already identified who they are yet. There are new joint powers authorities popping up all the time, or a rural city or county that has not contacted us before. They need to still be able to log in here and request their domain. And so because of that, the system needs to welcome people we haven't vetted yet. And those people are not allowed to see every email associated with every domain in the system. But as an admin myself, and we have a set of admin super users, we can help you out with specific information about specific domains that you need to know about.
Is there a standard nomenclature for cities and counties?
Yeah, there is. Eric does the trend better than I can.
Actually, Michael knows.
Yes.
City of usually, or
Yes,
county of.
it is described in detail in SIM 40A, and it's basically city of or county of, the name of the city or county, or, for example, the city or county name followed by city or county, Merced County.
Because you can't be the Sacramento.co.gov, because you don't know if that's Sacramento City or Sacramento County. There has to be distinctions made.
And there have been exceptions made for cities and counties where they don't have the same name for the city and county, so it's already clear that they're a county.
Or if you're San Francisco, you will both be city and the county, and you're one government, that's fine, but I think they don't use that .co.gov anymore. Yeah, see, that's optional for a lot of people.
Oh, and SIM 48 has it in a very detailed tables with examples of what is and isn't.
And we're also happy to, if you have questions, just, contact Michael, he can help you with that.
Yeah.
Other questions on this? No?
Oh, and if you have any domains floating out there that are still needed, please do log into the system and claim those domains.
Yeah, because what Michael hasn't said is that, next year when we go to recertify all of these, if